Rain. What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world.
Preaching freedom.
Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.
Yo. What up, world? It's your boys, the POGs. We are back. It is Sunday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and we are back for another episode of Two POGs, and we are live. It's your boy, KJ Bradley, and the world's greatest chaplain, Mr. Lance O'Neill. What up, Chappie? How you doing?
Good. How are you? Let's see if anybody joins us in the chat room tonight.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It's getting to be Christmas time and the break. We tend to lose people around the holidays, man. So
you nearly lost me tonight. So
were you cutting out? You getting ready?
No.
Oh.
I'm just joking.
Oh man, listen. I know the wife is up in New York to see her folks, so I got daddy daycare duties for the next week. So it's gonna be fun and games. The kids have already set traps out for the elves. They got surveillance cameras running in the living room because the elves keep disappearing. So, my goal for the week is to survive. That's it. That is the plan. We'll see how that works out. What about you? You guys got any plans for Christmas, or what's the move?
No, my daughter has been in town for the last week, and then she and her husband just went on a cruise. So they drove down to Pensacola today. They sail out tomorrow. And then they'll get back up here like on Christmas, the day before Christmas Eve, I think. So they'll be up here for a few days after that too. So yeah, so they're kind of in for the holidays, which is cool.
That's cool. Get the tribe back together. All right, man. You ready to dive into it? See what's happening?
What do you got?
You know what? Let's start it off with the two-time, what is it? Two-time Times Man of the Year, Mr. Donald J. Trump. This is I don't know. Let's see. He was announced last week for the second time. His first time was, I think, 2016. And with him becoming the incoming POTUS, he just won the award again this year. So Trump is our new Times Man of the Year. I don't really know how significant the award is. I know it's kind of faded to black, but back in the day it used to be a significant award, but now I think the prestige is just kind of like it's kind of iffy, man. You got any thoughts on that, or we'll get into the interview and everything that kind of came off behind it, but just on the initial award of him being the Man of the Year, what do you think?
My first thought is, and as you said it like that, what popped into my head is wasn't Hitler Times Man of the Year in like 1936? See, Trump's doing everything Hitler did. Like the whole when he had the rally at Madison Square Garden, and the whole major news, the mainstream media went off and see, he's doing it just like the Nazis did in the 30s. It's like, just because you do something that somebody else doesn't mean you have the same thoughts, same ideology, same everything. It just means that sometimes time and place are just similar. So yeah, I heard some arguments about, well, how could Kamala Harris not be the person of the year? Well, she lost, so there's one reason.
Yeah.
It seems, I mean, Trump's as good a pick as any. And like you said, does it really matter? Like, who else? If you say, and we're such a short attention span as really globally in a lot of ways, let alone just in the US. Like, if you think, well, what else happened this year? The most major thing is obviously the election. And it's weird to think the election happened 6 weeks ago. It's been like 5-6 weeks already.
Yeah.
And this is why I kind of laugh at some of this stuff. If Trump wins, it's the end of democracy. It's the end of whatever. And my favorite was all the people who voted for Trump voted for the end of democracy. So they participated in a democratic election, and that ends democracy? Like, really? Okay. So I just kind of have to laugh. I don't think Time magazine is. I don't think Time even prints anymore, do they? Isn't it just a digital version?
I don't know. I think they still print. I mean, they would. I would imagine they
Do
still,
they?
I'd imagine so. Now,
They might, but the only thing I can think of seeing when you go through the supermarket, I see the fancy, the fancier booklets of Time magazine when they do, the retrospective, like Time, the 90s in pictures, or Princess Diana in pictures. You know what I'm talking about? Kind of like the fancier magazines, and some of those. I'm curious if somebody collects those, because that actually could end up being a pretty kind of cool collection, just because the way we are digital, there's very, very few people deal with analog. At least I shouldn't say very few people. By contrast, it's few people.
Yeah. Professor Google says yes, Time still has a print edition. So yes, they still do print that you can subscribe to. I think that kind of harkens back to, we've gone away from we don't own anything anymore, right? Like, as a society, right? Everything is subscription based, right? If if they take a movie off of your favorite streaming platform, then no matter whether you bought it or not, or even your album, right? If iTunes decides not to stream, Off the Wall by Michael Jackson or something, then that album's just gone. If you don't have the hard copy, you can't get access to it anymore.
Is that true? So if Apple loses, if you've lost, okay, so you go on and you buy Bad, right?
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, Google Music, if that's the thing, Google Music purchases the licensing rights to Bad, and they say, F you to Apple, we're not going to let you sub-license it anymore. Even if you bought it through Apple iTunes, you wouldn't have access to it?
No, you would then have to go buy it through Google, which is ridiculous, right?
That is pretty ridiculous.
That is cattywampus, but that is the game. I've talking
Wait,
to
what happens then? So what happens if 10 years later, if Apple gets the rights back, do you get your original purchase? I wonder if you get your original purchase.
Yeah, back. I mean, as long as you would still have, it would still be in your, I assume, in your library, your catalog. You just couldn't play it. I know for people with the movies, like when on Netflix, like when Netflix loses a movie, they archive it. They remove it from your selection, but they don't remove it from the database, just in case they eventually get the rights back to it and they can put it back up. So
that's not really purchasing, though. Like, I wonder if it's different. Like, if you go onto Amazon Prime and you purchase the licensing, you buy a copy of Moana.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing with the movies. Yeah.
So if Disney says we are going to now go exclusive, because you remember years ago, they stopped issuing certain movies even on the Disney streaming, right? You couldn't get. I think The Little Mermaid for a while went away. Yeah. And so if you had a digital copy, it went away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you had to watch it exclusively through the Disney Plus app.
But what if they say we're not even going to? But if they say we're not even going to, we're going to lock it out of even we're not even going to let it be available through Disney anymore. Well, Song of the South would be a great example. If they ever decided to release Song of the South, and then they turned around and said, "Whoop, that was a mistake." If you bought it, would you have access to it?
No, remember they pulled Song of the South down for a while, so you couldn't even.
I don't think they ever had Song of the South on digital though.
They had it on there, but they pulled it down and then they put it back up there with the warnings on it, right? So you'll see like all the Disney films now have all these culturally relevant warnings and graphics. These films were made. Bless you. Bless you.
I'm just showing off.
Yeah, you're good. These films were made in a culturally different time, and they may arouse cultural sensitivities or whatever the messaging is. But But yeah, man, that's just weird. Like I talked to a couple of guys, and they are actively buying hard copies of IP now because even like so say you had a first run copy of Indiana Jones, right? And in that first run copy, there was a scene that was messed up, right? And it only came out on VHS, right?
Mhm.
Well, when they released the digital copy on the streaming platform, they went in and fixed it. But you don't want to see that part. You want to see the one that was messed up because it made, it made the movie quirky. Well,
Oh,
you won't be able
Lilo and Stitch.
right.
Lilo and Stitch is a great example of that. You don't
Well, yeah,
want to see
yeah,
pizza boxes. You want to see her climb out of the dryer.
exactly. And you can't
Huh.
see that unless you buy that hard copy. So, but that goes into me putting my tinfoil hat on about where's the line, right? In media manipulation, because if you can go back and just change the story at any time or correct it, if somebody falls off stage or somebody hits a note wrong. I think what was it, Alicia Keys, when she was performing, she missed a note during the live performance, right? But when they went back and replayed it on the media later, they had digitally corrected the note so that the missed
Really?
note wasn't there anymore. And that created a big uproar. And they was like, why did you do that? You know what I'm saying? Why would you do that? And they was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, we didn't want her to, we wanted the
Be
performance,
embarrassed.
what they intended.
Be a
And I'm like,
person.
right. And I'm like, that kind of defeats the, that takes the human, I guess, the human aspect out of it, right? Because now everything can be perfect because of the digital manipulation. It just opens up a can of worms, man. But we got so far off the topic. We were talking about Trump and being the man of the year, and
Well, but here's the funny thing. That's really not that off topic, because if you think about it, okay, what happens if now they go back and they manipulate what Trump says or what anybody says, right? You had that this week where I guess they didn't manipulate it per se, but the Meet the Press interview that Trump gave, that was an hour and 10 minutes long or whatever.
14th Amendment.
Yeah, the 14th Amendment thing. So, she says, what are you going to do with birthright? And he says, I think we need to look at it. And she says, well, constitutionally, I don't think that it's pretty clear constitutionally. And he says, well, we're going to look at it. Well, I saw Mike Lee had made an argument. So let me read the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
All persons, and this is the key part Mike Lee was focusing. Now, remember, Mike Lee is a lawyer. I want to say he argued in front of the SCOTUS once or twice. Don't quote me on that. I'm not positive. But lawyer, right? And he says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States. And then this is what she said. She said, well, sir, the 14th Amendment says all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. And that's what she kind of quoted, right? Mm-hmm. But the actual amendment says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. So Mike Lee's argument was, well, the and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And since that's never really been defined, perhaps it's up to Congress to define what that means under the jurisdiction thereof. Now, I don't know. That's many layers above me and all that. But it is an interesting part of you can go in and the truth of, the Ministry of Truth from 1984, you can go back, and who's to say if time didn't go back or, whatever digital, because this is all digital now. Yeah. How hard would it be to go back and manipulate what Trump said or Romney said or Obama said or whatever, that when they were done with digital recording? Now it's a little bit harder with analog, because like you just said, maybe somebody's going in and buying the IPs, and sure. I'm still waiting. Honestly, the way Disney does cash grabs, I'm honestly kind of amazed that Disney hasn't done, and they never did a Blu-ray of Star Wars original release, the 1977 original film, because you would have had a lot of people that would have gone back, and they could have done all 3 movies and gone back. And I personally would probably go buy a copy of those 3, because I don't like some of the changes that were made, especially in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, how they changed the actors and the voices of characters like Boba Fett and the Emperor, some of those things. So even putting in the Jabba the Hutt scene from In A New Hope, where Han goes to the hangar and Jabba says, basically tells him, hey, you dumped the shipment. Now you owe me more money. And Han says, hey, you know what? Don't send Greedo after me. You come after me yourself. And he steps up and down over Jabba's back. What they did, that originally was filmed with just a big fat dude who, no, seriously, he was just a big fat guy. And he was the actor, and he had these extra skins, and it made him even bigger. And he was Jabba the Hutt, right? And then they went back and they digitally put in Jabba. So I first of all, I don't think you need the scene, but what if I want to go back and I want to watch Star Wars that I watched Star Wars growing up for the first 20 years of my life before they went in and they did the new, what was the new edition? Didn't it come out like mid 90s? So, I watched the original Star Wars for 20 years of my life, and then going in and it's like, Boba Fett's actually from New Zealand? What the heck?
Yeah, it takes away from that. I don't know. For me, it takes away from that. There's a certain magic, right? When you're creating, especially back then, you have to be inventive and intuitive, right? And when you get a behind the scenes look at how that was made, right? Like when you watched it for the first time, you didn't know that was a fat guy right there, right? But then when you found out about it, that just made it.
Well, that scene wasn't even in the original.
Really?
Yeah, that was a cut. That was never even in it because it didn't work.
Yeah,
they added that in later to introduce Jabba.
So that's even better. Like, why put it in there if it wasn't even in the original?
Well, okay, so here's the argument. The other side. The argument is Lucas's vision, because he was able to go in and do the special edition, and he was able to go in and make these changes. That was truer to his vision as a filmmaker. Okay, fine. You want to make that argument, you can. But if you make that argument, why are you making the argument that you shouldn't release or you're going to eliminate what the original was? Like, you can't find Star Wars, the original theatrical release, on DVD.
Exactly.
So if you're a collector and you have a copy on VHS, good for you, dude.
Yeah.
Go try to burn it and give it to people, though, and you're going to get that FBI warning right from the start. And so I don't mind, like, if Lucas wants to go in and he wants to do that and he wants to re-release it, fine. But I think that you should still have some of the original. You should make it original. Like,
there we go.
And then, that's awesome, Thad. Cool. Hey, tell you what, I'll give you my information. You can burn me a copy if you have a VHS to DVD. Let me know and I'll take a copy.
If it's all right with you, because Thad is a filmmaker and he has a unique perspective on this process. Thad, if it's all right with you, man, I'd like to send you the link to get you to come in and chime in on this, man.
Yeah,
because I think he has a unique perspective,
for sure,
in this process, man. And I would love to hear his thoughts on that.
Well, and the idea is it's not even about the birthright citizenship, but with that, it's the manipulation of history. Right. And that's where I have the problem, is kind of the manipulation of history. So I'd be curious. Yeah, I'd like to hear what Thad thinks about some of the changes. Now, I'm not saying that Disney or the owner of one of my kids is getting chips out, if you can't hear that, to make nachos. My wife said, no, do it in the kitchen. Nobody will bother you downstairs. I said, really? We'll see how that goes. Just get your food. She's yelling at me for saying something about it. And I'm not saying that Disney doesn't have the right to go in and re-release Star Wars. I'm not saying Disney doesn't have the right to go in and re-release probably the most egregious one, which is E.T., where they digitally took guns out of the agent's hands and had them with walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
That's pretty egregious.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Stuff like that is just, it makes no sense. Like,
well,
I don't like writing a history like that. You know what I mean?
But even if they have the right to do it, fine, do it, but don't then go in and scrub the original.
Right.
You know what I mean? So why not have the two different? Why not have the Star Wars original? Why not have E.T. the original?
Exactly, and be perfect
amount of release.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and that's where with stuff like with this Time Magazine interview and the Meet the Press interview and all that. That's why I think Trump changed the game when I don't remember what interview it was, but he was doing an interview with somebody. I want to say it was Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes. And they aired the interview with, it might have been, I don't remember if it was President Trump or candidate Trump in 2015. But then Trump came out and he released his unedited version. I was no, that's not what I said. And then we were filming it ourselves, and CBS was like, "Oh, you can't. Now you agreed not to." It's like, well, and Trump's like, "Hey, you know what? You broke the agreement by maliciously editing this stuff. So why shouldn't I be able to?"
Yep. Hold on, I got Dr. coming in.
Yeah, that's cool. Dr. Jones, I presume.
That's right.
Yes, sir. Can y'all hear me?
What up, man?
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
What's going on?
So in regards to the IP and then the manipulation of going back and adding and altering films, what do you, because I know as a filmmaker you have a unique perspective in that regard. What are your thoughts?
Well, a couple things. The first thing is that to me, altering the original makes it a new IP. Because you've already copied I should say this. Some of the altering is enough that it changes the storyline. And if it changes the storyline, it's no longer I'm no lawyer, but in my thoughts, it should no longer be under the same copyright. Right, because when we copyright our scripts, we are allowed to make changes as long as it does not ultimately change the story. Right, so there are updates to a copyright to a script all the time that has already been copywritten. But what we are talking about now is a finished product,
right? That
has already been copywritten as is, because the script and the film is a separate IP.
Okay.
So as the film becomes released, then you have to go, and I'm sure somebody at Disney or somebody in there is going back and covering their CYA, right? Covering butts on it. But that's one thing. But then the other thing is we have, it's been done a lot. I remember the Goonies. There's a scene in the original theatrical version of a giant squid in the lagoon. When they come down and they get in, right before they get to the pirate ship, there's a scene with a giant squid, but you can't find it anywhere. I have several copies of the Goonies trying to find the original theatrical release where that squid is, and you can only find it on there's a couple places on YouTube where you can actually see that this was later removed because
I knew that was a cut scene, or so I don't know. So you're saying in the original theatric release the squid was in there?
Yes. Oh. So when I saw it originally as a kid, again, that it's when films are released, a lot of times those films are released in a test market first.
Right.
and then people, oh well, the kids didn't react to this, or and it gets another cut before it gets a major theatrical release. And so that was one of the scenes that hit the cutting room floor. But I've seen it. I saw it in theaters when I saw it, and when I got the copy later on as an adult, I was like, there was a squid in here. There was a giant something, and it's no longer here. So this is not something new. But as a collector of hard media, I find it. I knew this was coming, so this is why I collect DVDs. I collect VH. I have VHS. I don't have Laserdisc because I never owned a Laserdisc player, but I've got Blu-rays because streaming doesn't allow you. Like you're at the whim of somebody else to be able to say, nobody's really watching this. I'm going to pull it down.
Yeah.
Even if you've purchased it. So, people purchase those codes to be able to watch films. And, it's you hear Disney say it all the time. Better not say that too many more times. But you hear them say it all the time.
Yeah.
This is going back to the vault. Right. And
we were talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what's coming out now? E.T. is that what's getting another theatrical release?
Yeah.
Right.
Are they going to remake it, or are they just going to release it for what I guess it would be 50th anniversary, something like that?
Yeah, I think it's the 50th anniversary. I think they're just going to they're more times than not what they do is they enhance the resolution of these things, which is not a big deal to me. It doesn't seem like it, just to make it, because most theaters are now digital projection and not film projection. And then the other thing is, there's a whole generation of people who have never seen E.T. And so they're going to probably more times than not, they are going to release what was the latest version of it without any changes.
Well, so that becomes E.T. will be a good test of this, because then you say, all right, they're going to re-release E.T. Actually, I think E.T. was 83, 84. So maybe it's the 40th year anniversary.
It was 82.
Yeah, I thought it was 82, but it could be wrong.
82? Mm-hmm. What a weird time to re-release then.
Yeah, June 11th, 1982. Yep.
82. Okay, so I wonder when. Okay, so they're re-releasing it for whatever reason. So then the question is, are they going to release the version with the walkie-talkies or with the guns?
Knowing Disney, it'll probably be walkie-talkies.
Well,
which is stupid.
I think one of the things that people are going to want to talk about in that is that you've got a bunch. When we were coming up in that time frame, it was nothing to see the agents with guns,
right?
Yeah, but we are in a time now where every helicopter parent is going to be, oh my God, they've got guns on kids. Oh my goodness. I mean, I watched what was the name of that with Matthew Broderick? War Games.
War Games.
There were, and all these movies came out around the same time. War Games, the one with Dabney Coleman, where he was a figment of the little boy's imagination. He was a spy. It was a little figure. I can't remember the name of it, but it was all these little kid spy movies.
You got me on that one. Dabney Coleman is a figment of the imagination. I'm not sure I want to see that.
Oh man, it was a good little movie. I can't think. Hold on, it's gonna bother me now.
Pretty sure that wasn't 9 to 5.
No, it was
no.
Not at all.
He was in 9 to 5 though.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
I was making the joke, obviously.
Yeah.
It was Cloak and Dagger. That's what it was. And it actually came out the year. I never saw. He was in. Dabney Coleman was actually in War Games and Cloak and Dagger, and so that was 83 and 84, and those were back to back, right before right before he took a hiatus because he wasn't in a whole lot in the late 80s, but then he came back in stuff like Short Circuit or Short Time and a bunch of other little things that he was in. But anyway, I digress. All of those films had kids being pursued by agents. That was the point that I was getting to, where there were guns, right? And they were chasing these kids. And now you don't see that. You will see parents up in arms, especially for Disney centric. And those films were I believe they were Touchstone films or Warner Brothers films at the time.
I think it was Touchstone, right? Touchstone
sounds right.
Yeah.
Which is owned by Disney now, right?
Yeah. As long as they don't Lion King it, I'm cool. Because they have just destroyed the legacy of Lion King to the point where I just can't stand anything Lion King.
That is your generation, because I was Lion King as an adult, and I was just like, I'm tired of this.
Yeah, I was like the
You know, I remember watching Lion King growing, all of them. I mean, Aladdin came out when Little Mermaid came out when I was in high school, so I'm aging myself there pretty good. I remember, I think it was junior year, near the end of the year, when you're not actually doing anything in class, and every teacher puts in, just a
VHS.
Yeah,
a VHS, and every class was like the Little Mermaid, and they started at the same place so it's like, how many times can we watch the first 45 minutes of the Little Mermaid in a row? Because I've got the record tied for the record with every single person in my high school.
You'll never get to the end in that class.
Oh, so, but you look at some of those, but even when they started really kind of, I don't know if the phrase is helicoptering, but with the Looney Tunes, and they wouldn't show the Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, especially the duck season, Wabbit season, where Daffy keeps getting shot in the bill, and his bill would spin around or it'd be on the top of his head or whatever. And this is going to cause gun violence for children. It's like, do you really think kids think that I should pick up a shotgun and aim it at their buddy's face, and the bill's going to, oh wait, they don't have bills. It's a cartoon. They're not a rabbit. They're not a duck. Kids are not that stupid to think. Like, it was one thing, like G.I. Joe was actually very subtle about it. G.I. Joe, if you notice, never killed anybody. If they blew up an airplane, there was always a parachute. So they were at least subtle about it. But when you say, oh, we're just going to not even allow anything to be shown, and any guns to be shown. And now I've seen ones with the Looney Tunes where it's like shows depictions of tobacco, because it's Bugs sitting back and he rolls. Yeah. Remember, there's the episode where Yosemite Sam, and he rolls and then he spits the spittoon. It's like, really, those are the type of things we're worried about, is Bugs Bunny rolling a cigar or a cigarette? What's up, Doc?
Well, it's because nobody wants to have the hard conversations anymore about parenting and what you should be controlling. Listen, I was a kid that was left to his own devices, but my mother was like, listen, if I gotta get a call and I gotta show up about,
that was always the threat, right?
Something you did, right? You knew you were going to be in trouble, and you knew that there was a community of people that was like, I'm getting ready to call your mom.
Yeah.
Whoa. That's a nuclear option. Let's talk about this. Let's have a conversation. I'm getting on my bike going back to the house right now. No problems. Right?
I left 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. but we have got, what we've gotten now are a bunch of parents that don't talk to their children about what's real and what's fantasy. They don't talk to their children about real life. And making real life decisions. And so they live in a fantasy world of screens that consistently blur the lines of what's reality and what's fiction. And not being able, we talk about this in media literacy all the time when we're talking about movies, not being able to make a clear distinction between the two is how we get a whole generation of people that don't know real news and real facts from someone's opinion of the fact.
That's interesting you say that. I was in one of the high schools volunteering. I have to say volunteering. And we were talking about some history and some things. And I let them know, like, my intent is when I retire this summer from the Army is to become a history teacher. And one of the things I want to do with these kids is I want them to come up with a contract where we sit down at the start of the year and say, all right, here's what is expected. Here's what acceptable. And one of these things that the kids need to realize is that they're in history. History is dirty. History is nasty. History is gross. History is not this sanitized version that you've been fed. And if you go in and you, for example, when George Floyd was killed, and I've talked to KJ about this, I realized that I kind of had a gap in my education when it came to African Americans and especially the slave issue, the transition of slaves. So I went back and I read Frederick Douglass and I read W.B. Du Bois and I read Booker T. Washington and some of these things. And we've had some really good conversations about that.
Yeah, that was a great series we had.
Yeah. And so one of the things with these kids is it's one thing to look, I'm not going to gratuitously use the N-word. But if we're talking about Frederick Douglass and we're reading a passage of what Frederick Douglass said, and we're quoting what Frederick Douglass or W.B. Du Bois or Malcolm X, and if that's what we're talking about, and you read from the page, I don't want one of these kids turning around and going, oh, I'm going to video this and I'm going to get Mr. O'Neill in trouble because he said the N-word, even though I'm reading what Frederick Douglass said. Have either of you seen American Fiction, the movie American Fiction that came out last year?
I have not seen American.
I don't think so, no.
Phenomenal. It's based on a book, but it's the guy who's on Westworld. I don't know the actor's name, the black guy from Westworld.
Jeffrey.
Realizes, yes.
His name is Jeffrey.
I was going to spoiler and I did. So he's on it and he's doing this. The very opening scene is he is a American literature like professor. He's got his doctorate and he writes up on the board the book they're going to be talking about. And the book has the N-word in it, right? And so there's this stereotypical blue hair student kind of, professor, I don't think that it's appropriate that you have that up on the whiteboard. And he's like, it's the name of the book. Yes, but I shouldn't have to see the N-word. That hurts my soul. And he's like, if I can get over it, I think you can. And the next scene is her exiting the room just in tears. And then he goes to the disciplinary and they're like, you can't keep doing this to the students. She's like, and he's just like, are you kidding? It was the name of the book. And that's kind of where we're at, I think, in society. Is like,
I think it's very much where we are. But the reason is when you pull the ability to have those hard discussions, because life is like those hard discussions. You're going to meet people in the world that don't care that your feelings are hurt. Yeah. I think that there's a unique distinction between how I have to arm my children to go out into the world and what you might have to say to your children. I don't know for a fact, but I have to arm my children to be ready to not let those words cause a reaction that is going to get them arrested, and the person that said it is going to get to go about their day with no problems. And so by not being able to truthfully have these conversations in a learning environment, in a collegiate environment at that, we are severely dumbing down the ability to have intellectual conversation, to agree and disagree, and say, hey, we might not agree on the same things, but I can understand your viewpoint. And then how do we get closer to a compromise of the way that we think things should move going forward? But we can't get to any of that if we can't have a conversation that is elevating your state of mind. if you are always going to be in a child state of mind and dealing, which is emotional, you're dealing. I want, children deal with their emotions very. I want the ice cream now, but no, you can't.
That's all
have
they
ice
know
cream,
is emotion,
right? All they know is emotion. So again, we don't all move. First off, we don't make decisions logically like most of us think. We deal with emotions, but we have to understand that emotional aspect of how we confront each other has to be pulled back, right? And that aspect of it is nothing. There's nothing. I can't read the comments.
That's gonna go. I'll come back to that after that. But before I want to finish this thought.
The emotional aspect of having that conversation, right? There's nothing more satisfying to me than having someone think that they're going to push my button by saying something, and for me to be in control of my faculty enough and just pull all the way back and say, all right, let's talk about that. You should see their faces when you have control over your emotions enough to say, I'm going to have this conversation with you that you thought was going to be a non-negotiation, a stopping point. I'm going to say this and it's all going to go off the rails. No, ma'am, no, sir. No, ma'am, no, sir. What we're going to do is going to be an adult about how we deal with this.
Okay.
I'm sorry, KJ, go ahead.
No, you're good. I want to give you guys a different perspective. I ran across this video today, and I think it's apropos for what we got going on. And then we're going to come back and we're going to address Liberty, because Liberty has a unique way of bringing in some stuff that just gets me going. So I'm gonna present this, and I want you guys to tell me what your thoughts are, and then we'll come back to it if I can get it to work right. Let's see, entire screen. Here we go. Screen 2. Share and see if we can make this work. Oh, I forgot to hit the mute button.
This kindergarten is completely open most of the year, and there is no boundary between inside and outside. So it means basically this architecture is roof. We made the roof as low as possible because we wanted to see children on top of the roof, and not only underneath the roof. When you put many children in a quiet box, some of them get really nervous. But in this kindergarten, there is no reason they get nervous because there is no boundary. There are 3 trees popping through. The children fall into the net. And the boy on the branch, he loves the tree, so he's eating the tree. In this kindergarten, these children show amazing concentration in the class. And these children have the highest athletic abilities amongst many kindergartens. Principal says, I don't train them. We leave them on top of the roof, just like a sheep. Now, these days, kids need small dosage of danger. And in this kind of occasion, they learn to help each other. This is society. This is the kind of opportunity we are losing these days. My point is, don't control them. Don't protect them too much. They need to tumble sometime. They need to get some injury. And that makes them learn how to live in this world. Architecture is capable of changing this world. And this is one of the attempts to change the life of children.
All right. So give you guys a little bit of backstory on that. That was a TED Talk that I kind of ran across. I saw the initial video on like Facebook, and then I had to go research it. So the guy is a CEO of an architecture company overseas. And what they do is they've been redeveloping these elementary schools where they essentially make them open air play spaces, right? And to make the I guess to make the concept relatable, it's free range education. If Johnny is not ready to sit down, Johnny will go climb a tree, right? But that allows Johnny to get the energy out without being disruptive to the people who are still, learning. And what they've shown is that has allowed scores across the board to go up tremendously because, one, the teacher's not having to take time away from the students to focus on the kid that's being disruptive. And then two, it's allowing that kid to get that, that anxiety and that nervous energy out and express himself in ways, what I'm saying, without having, because kids don't know how to express themselves. So it's allowing them to be in their natural state while also continuing to learn and be free. And it was a really dope. He goes on for like an hour and a half, just kind of talking about, the different ways, and they follow them. It's an entire elementary school, and the access to free range gets expressively more open as the kids get older, to the point to where they're completely independent by their like third grade. And it's amazing. And they were talking about how it could be, how it can transform the education system as a whole. And then I thought it was apropos, seeing as if we talked about last week, with the closure of the DOE and this being a transformational administration. Let's see some transformational ideas that may be. What are you guys' thoughts?
Well, I read a book called Bad Therapy recently by Abigail Schreier, and she talks about this quite a bit in similar ways, in terms of we are too focused on what the kids' emotions are and what their feelings are. And so, when these kids come into school and they say, "How are you doing today?" And they say, "Well, I'm fine." No, but how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Are you happy? Are you feeling okay? How are you feeling? They're in school. Honestly, feeling should not be the top of the list. Are you prepared to learn? Are you feeling well? I care as a teacher. I care physically you're feeling okay or not. Emotionally, hey, now's the time to set your emotions aside, come to the school, and be ready to learn. These kids at elementary school in Japan, I think that especially, my guess is the boys especially benefit from that. Because the way we do school in America, school is not meant for boys. And what I mean by that is sitting down, and I've seen it in my own son, telling him to sit down as a 6, 7, 8-year-old, sit there for basically 8 hours a day with a short recess break and a short lunch break, but you have to sit there the rest of the time. Boys are not good at that. They need to be up. They need to be able to run around. So the few times I've been in the elementary school in classes and the kids start getting a bit jumpy, the boys start getting a bit, I basically say, "All right, everybody up. Simon Says, touch your nose." And we'll play Simon Says for 10 minutes. I'll tell you, by the end of the day, when these other teachers go, "How'd it go? How'd it go?" I'm like, "They were fine." They're really? Like, they normally kind of get a little rowdy, this and that. It's like, no, the minute they started getting rowdy, we played, I got their energy out.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of kids being independently and like, I'm guessing what you said further on, and as they get older, by the time they're in 10th, 11th, 12th grade, they're like, well, that interests me, so I'm going to learn about that.
Yeah.
And I think that's lost in America as well. We're so set in you have to take 4 credits of English, 4 credits of math, 3 credits of this, 2 credits of foreign language, 2. Meanwhile, it's like, you might have a kid that goes, "I'm really interested in being a mechanic. And so I can take 1 class as a sophomore of welding and 1 class of whatever as a junior," instead of going, "Hey, why aren't we setting this kid up for success? Does he really need an American lit class? Probably not." And if his entire day is him going in and just working on an engine, if that's his passion, why not? That kid's going to be a better mechanic than you or me. So let's make him a better mechanic than you or me. So I think we are a bit too, we also we're ignoring the natural talent that kids have. And we're trying to take all these kids and put them all into the same round hole. And yet we have all these kids that are all different shapes. And that's where, to me, like KJ, we say it jokingly, get rid of the Department of Education. But yeah, if that's the transformational, that we can get to the point where kids, individual parents, have more say in their education than the federal government does, that's a win to me.
I think, well, there's a couple things to address what you're talking about. A standard of education is what, this whole thing is built off of, because school is not designed to produce, thinkers. School is designed to produce workers.
Yep.
Be able to follow the minimal instructions, go into your factory, blah, blah, blah. Push the button, hear the sound, pull the lever, continue moving on. What we are talking about, though, has some deeper roots in the fact that children need to be able to express this kinetic energy before they're even capable of understanding what you're trying to talk to them about. You see it in your small children all the time. It's like they got ants in their pants. They can't sit still. You take them outside, they run around, they play, they explore, they come back in. You can have a conversation, right? Because you've kind of worked out that kinetic energy. What I've also seen, though, I've seen. I hope y'all hear my dog in the background acting a nut.
We all got him, yeah.
But what I see with our kids nowadays is that parents, again, back to being helicopter parents, we are programming fear into our children, our fears into our children. No, you can't go over there. No, and let me hold your hand. Let me figure this thing out. And I see that more so in African American families than I do with white families or other families. I see children running wild and their parents just let them go. And I see black families with their children go, no, you're not going to do that. Come here. Come, stay right here. Don't move. Now that fear and how this relates to education is because that same child who may be in school having that same kinetic energy wanting to run around, if he is black, he is labeled as a problem. He is labeled as a child that cannot learn. He's labeled as an LD student when it might be just some issues of burning that energy. He then gets into remedial and all these other things, right? Versus the opposite side of there's these chances and these chance after chance of things that can go your way. I think that what we are seeing is that when children are given the room and latitude to get that kinetic energy out and about, they are able to be present and learn a lot more easily than if they are pinned to a desk, try to be structured and corralled, like, you know what I mean? Like just corralled into this form that any child is going to buck against. They don't want to be pinned in. They want to run free. But if you don't give them the ability to do that, then we see this overflow. And it really does affect all of the other issues in school. So, the test scores that they are looking at are seeing upticks on are a direct result of creating an environment that allows children to harness, like you said, their natural abilities by burning off this unsteady kinetic energy and be present when that is through.
Yeah.
There's no screens.
Yeah.
Right. If you saw when you saw the video, you don't see them sitting on tablets. I'm sure there's some time for computers.
Yeah.
To your other point about mechanics and trades, unfortunately, I think we are at a time where that type of mechanic or that type of traditional trade is getting further and further away from the actual jobs that we see here in the States, right? And so you might see a plumber, you might see carpentry, you might see something with logistics, but mechanics are all now you need to be some kind of computer technician to work on most of these cars because they're all run by computers, while most of the engines are made of plastic. So
let me push the conversation forward and ask you then, are we at a point now to where there's a way where we can merge those two ideas together, right? We can bring back those trades, but also pivot toward a look into the future where it's saying, okay, we're not necessarily bringing back shop in a sense to where you're doing it with your hands, but we're bringing back shop to where we're building quantum chips or we're teaching you the manipulation of quantum chips.
I think there's definitely a tactile version of this, that there is some version of doing these things with your hand, but also I think that we have to prepare our students for where the world is going, right? And we're not going backwards. We're not going to go back to an all metal engine. What we are going to end up going forward to is an engine that is computer controlled, that is running on an alternative fuel source, that all these things, and we are not preparing our students to think beyond. The craziest thing to me is that the Cybertruck now looks like the trucks that we used to draw when I was a kid. When we were kids, every kid was drawing this same style of car, and now you see that. And so to me, that tells you, if you let children and nurture children and their natural gifts, you are going to see them make the strides for the next evolution. To blend those two things together is what you need to be focused on. Blending and capturing where children already are with what the technology and the capabilities that we have, and creating curriculum that creates the environment for that to foster.
Okay.
So I think the problem with what the Cybertruck looks like is we were all crappy artists growing up, because I can't draw a lick, but I could draw that truck. So, but I will say this. So yes, we want to advance and we want to do these things like quantum mechanics and all that stuff. But I'll tell you what, everybody poops. So there's always going to need plumbers, and we're always going to need people who can put houses together. Even if we get to the point where we basically have 3D printing houses, you still are going to have people that work on the machines that make the 3D. We're not going to,
and that's just material changes.
Yeah. And so what I look at is, in a lot of ways, one of the things that I wanted to point out is that while we are doing a disservice to our kids by being helicopter parents and watching over them, my youngest is 6, and I'm more than happy to let my 11-year-old get on her scooter and ride about 1.5 miles over to her friend's house. I prefer that. But what we've also done is we've done a disservice to the parents because, and KJ, I sent you a link. I don't know if you have it.
Yeah, it's ready when you're ready.
So I had, I've seen this where what you said, Thad, was, okay, we used to have parents who would look out for other kids. You're all at the park, you see a lone kid, what would you do? You would look out for that kid too and make sure he's okay. But we're now at the point where we narc on other parents and say, look, that kid's, we better call the police. He's here at the park by himself. KJ, if you have the video, play it. It's ridiculous what we do to each other as parents now.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get that queued up, and we're going to take a look at it. Take it off mute this time first.
Your mother is facing jail time because her nearly 11-year-old son walked into town by himself. She says she was annoyed he didn't tell her where he was going, but she says he was never in danger. Then officers showed up to arrest her. ABC's Andrea Fujii has details.
This morning, police body camera video shows the moment Brittany Patterson was arrested for letting her 10-year-old son walk into town by himself.
What am I under arrest for?
For reckless endangerment.
And how was I recklessly endangering my child?
On October 30th, Patterson said she took one of her children to the doctor. In the meantime, her son, Soren, who since turned 11, decided to walk less than a mile into town from their home in rural Mineral Bluff, Georgia. While out, Patterson got a call from the sheriff's department, worried that Soren was walking alone.
I wasn't concerned. I wasn't, panicking or concerned because it's just a short walk from our house. He knows how to get home. He knows how to get there.
Authorities dropped Soren off at home, and 5 hours later, they returned.
Call mommy and tell them they're taking you to jail because you decided to walk down the street.
That's not his fault.
Yeah, call mom.
You're the mother.
The time I checked, it wasn't illegal for a kid to walk to the store.
Oh my God.
You're 10 years old.
Patterson was booked on suspicion of reckless conduct, a charge that could carry 1 year in jail. The warrant claiming she willingly and knowingly did endanger the bodily safety of her juvenile son.
Our criminal justice system is built on the fact that you did something or you were negligent. You did something criminally negligent. So what is it she did?
Authorities have offered to drop the charge if Patterson signs a safety plan that includes the use of a GPS tracker on her son's phone. But she refused to sign it or admit doing anything wrong.
I just felt like I couldn't sign that, and that in doing so would be agreeing that there was something unsafe about my home or something unsafe about my parental decisions, and I just don't believe that.
Brittany Patterson is out on bail, awaiting to see if prosecutors will indict her on the reckless conduct charge.
They're going to arrest my mama any day now.
I'm gonna let you guys talk about it because I'm gonna let y'all talk about it because I gotta catch my breath on that one. And
okay, let's do a quick poll. Let's do a quick poll. How many of us got kicked out of the car at some point by our mom or dad for acting the fool in the car and had to walk home?
I thought that was normal.
That it used to be normal. So here's the second part of that. At some point in England, in America, in the first world, we need to have police officers look in the mirror and say, am I the bad guy here? There was a male and a female.
Common sense.
She's starting to say, well, arrest it. And she says, what? For him walking to, hey, call, I'm being taken to jail because you decided to walk. And the female cop says, oh, ma'am, this isn't because of him. And then the other cop says, we're not talking about this. You two pieces of crap. And look, KJ knows I'm a former MP. I always give the benefit of the doubt to the police. That said, there's a point where you have to go as a law enforcement officer. Am I being the bad guy here? When I'm king of the world, the very first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure every police vehicle is painted highlighter pink or highlighter yellow. I want the police to be seen. I don't want them hiding behind trees. I don't want them with a radar gun saying, oh, I'm going to get some people because my county needs money. Police officers are supposed to be there to support and protect, not catch. Catch is very specific, right? Now, if you're doing the right thing as an officer, mistakes will be made still. I get that. But these police officers who don't, if somebody calls and I'm an officer, hey, we've got a 10-year-old. I'm kind of worried. He's down here. He's been walking around. Can you go check? And I go to that kid. I say, what was his name? Soren or something like that. Sure. Hey, Soren, buddy. I'm Officer O'Neill. Hey, I'm just checking. Where do you live, brother? I live down there on whatever street. How far is that? About an hour. Okay. Hey, or about a mile. Does your mom know you're here? No, I walk in. Okay, dude. Any issues? No. You know how to get home? Yeah. Okay. Just, hey, man, you get in trouble, walk into any of these buildings. You just make sure you get inside somewhere. And if somebody approaches you that's not supposed to or something, you know what? Just yell and scream as loud as you can, and you fight your butt off, but get in one of these buildings. Otherwise, go have fun, little man. That should have been it. But instead, we are calling the police.
We don't agree on everything, Chappie, but we agree on this. It is ridiculous that a 10-year-old can't walk into town to the store. Listen, I was walking to the store by myself since I was 8. All right.
Oh yeah.
I was coming home to a home by myself with a key. It makes no sense to me. And then you show up 5 hours later and place the parent under arrest.
The kid was fine,
and the kid is at home. Like, I'm in trouble because you decided to walk to the store. It's not because of what he did. It's because of you. Ma'am, do you have any children? Because if you don't have any children, you don't understand this at all. But I guarantee you've been a child that has walked off and done these things on your own. And it just makes no sense that we're spending money because she's going to go to trial. That's going to be, I mean, it just, if you look at the cost of what's going to happen for someone not having common sense, it's ridiculous. It's a poor way to be a steward of funds. It's a poor way to be a steward of the responsibility of being an officer, because at some point in time, can we just have a thought like, okay, what law has been broken here?
You trying to give me an aneurysm. If it's another link like that, we go have a problem. I tell you, it's
so
almost sitting over the edge.
No, this one's a little bit different. This is a contrast. This shows you the difference between how we do things in America. We'll go back to Japan. Japan has so much right. And instead of incorporating it and looking at things like Japan does, now Japan doesn't always do everything right. Like if you don't get into a better middle school because your test scores as elementary aren't great, you can go to a year of bushiban. And this is throughout Asia, but I know in Taiwan it's like this, China and Japan, an entire year of study school just to get into a better middle school. So you basically, at the end of 5th or 6th grade, you didn't get into the school your mom and dad wanted you to. We're sending you to an entire year of study school. I'm not a fan of that, but you got it, KJ?
So yeah, it's ready. But before I cue that up, I got it, man. Yeah. I cannot fathom the untold amount of parents that would be in jail. My grandmother, my aunts, my uncles would send us to the store with a list, 1.5 miles one way with the list, and we would go
uphill
buy
cigarettes in the snow, both ways. Yeah.
No, but literally, we would go buy cigarettes and bread and milk and whatever we needed for the day, and walk back. And if you had the audacity to come to my mama's house after she just worked a 15-hour shift and talk to her about and try to arrest her for doing something that I needed to do to take care of the house,
you must get ready to take over. You must want to raise them. All right.
God bless your soul. And that is the and we talked about the pendulum swinging, right? And that is a picture perfect case of the pendulum swinging too far the wrong way, because what the frick frap, and I'm trying my best because we got a new Salty War Pig. Welcome to the show. I'm doing my best to be on my best behavior, man.
I like that the algorithm pushed them onto us. We like that algorithm, whatever that was.
I just that makes no sense. So we're gonna go in, and we have been Japan heavy here lately, man. Buchiban and
like I said,
educational system.
Japan. There are some things about you. Have you ever watched the Japan where they're moving people in and out of line to go into Comic-Con, and it's like these groups, and it's insane how just. Even the stuff of the pictures of what public toilets look like in Japan versus America. Some of the stuff we do, and I don't know how we do. I don't know who goes into public toilets in America, because they must be like literal animals, because there's like feces thrown up against the wall. Last year. I went and picked up my wife. She was flying into Atlanta, so I drove out from Augusta to pick her up, and we were going in to get a drink. We went into the Circle K, and I needed to just urinate. So I go into the men's bathroom. I go in. I'm like, I really got to pee before we go. So I'm like, what is that? I go in. Somebody had toilet here, sink here. Somebody had taken a deuce under the sink. Not even. It's like. What goes through your brain that you're going, I have to actually get down and squat and then back up and go under the sink as opposed to
I gotta go.
in the actual. And then when I went out and I told the guy and the employees, they were like, "Well, there's nothing we can do about it." I mean, because they were from it was Iranian, I believe, owners, but Middle Eastern.
Oh my
And I
God.
was like, "Dude, are you serious?" And he goes, "I don't get paid enough to go clean that up."
I'll tell you, I worked in a convenience store, put myself through college, and I will tell you, there are some disgusting folks in the world. But one of the things I will say is that when you do find a convenience store that the clerks care enough to keep the restroom clean, you mark it on your mental Rolodex.
You better.
I know I can go back to this place and it will be clean.
You better.
That's why every city we need a Buc-ee's within driving distance.
Listen, shout out. Hold on. Shout out the Salty War Pig. Quick Trip.
Oh yeah, Quick Trip.
Fun fact. Before I joined the Army, I worked while I was in college. I worked at a Quick Trip, man. One of the best jobs I ever had, man. Working through college, matter of fact, I rode my bike to and from work every day. One of the best jobs I ever had, man. And
I hope
they
you're over
really
10 years
took care of
old.
you. Oh, I know, right? Heaven forbid I try to do something like that now.
Lucky you. I was at a Kangaroo. They don't even exist.
Oh yeah. No. Quick Trip.
I remember
Quick Trip.
Kangaroo.
Yeah, Quick Trip. They, as far as employee packages and benefits, like we got stock options. Day one, Quick Trip was an amazing. It is still an amazing company. Like for. I just wanted to put that out there, man. One of the best jobs as a teenager I could probably ever have. But let me get that video queued up for you guys, and then
While you're queuing that, yeah. If there was a Buc-ee's close enough for me to drive to, I would probably go work at a Buc-ee's instead of teaching high school because of the benefits and the pay packages.
Oh yeah, we go out our way. Go out our way up to go to the Buc-ee's, man. Buc-ee's
Sure did.
The only problem is we spend god awful amounts of money at that. I've never spent so much money at a gas station in my
Of course.
life. Jesus Christ.
Oh, every time you can't get. It's like going to Costco. You can't get out of Buc-ee's under $50.
Oh my god!
And that's without gas.
You're right.
Oh yeah, normally it's about 100. But
All right.
Yeah, I spent about $100 in there.
Yeah,
I do about every time too.
The brisket sound. Oh Jesus! You know what? Let me cue the video.
I'm partial to the barbecue turkey, but
man,
but I get
let
it.
me do this video. God, my.
The closest Buc-ee's for me is almost 3 hours away, though.
Let me stop. My wife watches this show and I'm on a diet. Let me stop.
Yeah, watch this.
All right, here we go.
ってヒロ君を観察しているうちに随分歩いてきましたよ。しかもな。仏様のお水をいつも変えてくれるんですって。おばあちゃんにお供えするのは菊の花。
Sorry about that, fellas.
Oh, good.
Glad I wasn't the
I
only
read
one
the
who wasn't
subtitles.
Was I
Yeah.
having a stroke?
No, I put you guys on mute, and then I think by putting you guys on mute, muted the system for you guys.
Yeah.
But with the subtitles, you get the idea. So that's
Yeah,
a
I
game
got it.
show. So that's a game show And what they do is they give these tasks to these little kids. That one was 3 years old. And they, just like I said, here's your flag, here's your task. And they start sending them out at 3 years old to complete these tasks. And it's a show that follows these Japanese kids. And what they're doing is they're putting the kids in a semi-controlled and yet still not completely safe situation to go out and learn and be in the world. And it's something that increases their worldview, but it also makes them more confident. What is better than a confident 7 or 8 year old kid who's like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to play basketball. I'm going to go play on the monkey bars. I'm going to go kick butt at this test because I know my times tables, as opposed to what we have in America, these 8-year-olds who go, I don't feel okay, so I don't think I should take the test today. And the teacher's going, you don't feel okay to take the test today? Well, oh, little Billy, then we better not give you a test today. If you don't feel up to it, I better call your mom. Hey, Mrs. Miller, Billy said he wasn't feeling well today, so we're not going to make him do the test. And that's okay, though. So what we're going to do is I'm going to talk to little Billy, and I'm going to talk to him about how he would feel better about taking the test. And if he's a little more verbal, then I'll sit down with him. But don't worry, I'll work it out, Mrs. Miller.
Well, you're identifying everything that is wrong with the way that we move forward in our society. You know, it's to me, it started with participation trophies. I can't stand them. I think it's it's the whittling down of that confidence. It's the whittling down of the putting in the work to get to something, where now we have kids that expect it to happen overnight.
Yeah.
Well, I've already played the game for like 12 hours and I just can't do it. What do you mean?
I've made a TikTok video. How am I not famous?
Right. It's this microwave. I need it right now. I don't feel up to it. My feelings. Yes, your feelings matter to you. And you need to do the work to control your feelings and understand that the world doesn't stop because you feel bad. But we are not setting our children up to deal with the real world. And I think that lack of emotional intelligence is crippling our society in more than one way. It's overflowing into so many different things. And, you know, to the point, we have adults that behave like this and throw tantrums when they can't have their way. And sometimes these people end up in a position that they are controlling your pension. They are controlling your hours. They are controlling whether you get the promotion or whether your 401k is okay, or, you know, all of these different things. Do we want to continue to move down this road, or do we want to start having the hard conversations and making some changes? I mean, that's what it really boils down to.
How many workspaces and universities basically suspended classes following the election because their candidate didn't win? We've seen that,
and this falls on everybody.
That's
right.
So where I think this really,
let's get out here and fight again.
Yeah, where I think this started is the 60s. Is kind of the hippie generation, because as they grew up and they said it's all about feelings, it's all about, hey, nobody else can tell you what to do. It's all about how you feel. And then they taught their kids, and their kids are now raising this next generation. So we're 2 generations away. And then you had some parents, like my dad was a silent generation. He was born in 1935. So my dad was not a touchy-feely guy. My dad was a, here's your right and left limit. Go do what you're going to do. Hey, as long as I'm not getting a call like that, like you were, as long as I'm not getting a call from the school. Plus, add on, I was number 5 out of 7 kids. Like literally, as long as I wasn't getting arrested. I wish my dad had been more like, hey, you need to study. You need to do this. I wish there was more guidance. But at the same time, we have people who, instead of learning the lessons, the right lessons and wrong lessons, they take all the wrong lessons. And what I mean by that is, so I could have looked at my dad and said, because you hear a lot of, well, that's the behavior I was modeled. My dad was a verbally abusive alcoholic. Therefore, that's how I'm going to justify that I'm a verbally abusive alcoholic. Instead of me going, well, look, my dad didn't say, I love you to me growing up. So I'm not going to say to my kids, what do? I do the exact opposite. I go, that's something
that's
I feel
what
like
most
I missed.
people do. It's either one or the other. You're either going to go the way that you saw it or the way that was modeled to you, or you're going to go the exact opposite. And for me, like you, it was the exact opposite.
And
Not that my
learning
father was that way, but I always tell my kids, I love you. I always tell my kids, listen, I'm here for you. My father didn't speak his emotions, right? He, I love you, son, right? All right, that kind of guy. He was in the Air Force, right? So he's what you guys call a chair
He's
jockey.
a POG. He's a POG. He works. So one of the things that I do also, my dad was he was an insurance salesman, so he would talk to anybody. And I'm actually a natural introvert, which a lot of people don't really get, but I am. I really am. But I force myself to do things that are uncomfortable. We came out of a movie theater. The last movie I saw, I was in Gladiator 2. I've only seen a handful of movies. And I heard this little kid in the background, probably 3 or 4 years old, making a lot of noise and yelping and this and that. But it's a Tuesday evening, so I know mom and dad are likely there with the kid. Probably don't have the money for a babysitter or whatever. Okay, so as we're walking out, it was a black family, so mom and dad were black, and the little kid obviously black. And as we're walking out, I said to the dad, I said to them both, I said something like, "Hey, is your son on the spectrum?" Because you can I've got a master's in family and marriage, so there's some things there that I kind of picked up on pretty quick. And they said, yeah. I said, okay, hey guys, I'm going to tell you something right now. Don't worry about what your son's doing. Nobody in there was offended that he was making the noises. I certainly wasn't. You guys, probably your first date in a while, and they would kind of like look at each other like, how did he know? Like, yeah. I said, look, guys, you're doing a good job. If your son bothers some people, that's on them. Go out, live your life, have fun. He's autistic. You're supporting him. You brought him with him. You guys are doing a good job. Don't let you tell anybody otherwise. And you could see the mom just kind of like the weight lift because she was worried. You could tell. And it just and she said, thank you so much. I wasn't doing it for my own benefit. I was doing it for them. I want them to go, it doesn't matter. You're at a movie. Now, do I think that parents should necessarily take a 6-month-old into a movie theater? No. But I understand it. There are circumstances where that has to happen. When people get mad at parents who take babies on airplanes, well, look, the baby's got to go with the parents. Maybe instead of freaking out, you go over and say, hey, I'm some random stranger, dude. I'm going to be right there in this tube. I'm sitting right next to you, and your baby's kind of freaking out a little bit. Do you need a break? I'd love to take the baby for a few minutes. Maybe just being with somebody else would freak the baby out. I've had that happen. And of course, it's half and half. Either the baby freaks out, and after a minute, you have to give them back and go, I tried, and they appreciate that. Or the baby goes, oh, I'm with a new person. Who's this? And they settle down. So instead of, and that's where, like, going back to the helping each other, if we looked out for each other and we actually just tried to have a little bit more, I tell my kids this because I've got an 11-year-old and a 15-year-old, and they fight sometimes, boy and a girl, and so they fight. And so when my 11-year-old gets poked by my 15-year-old, and she kind of freaks out a little bit, I'll say, hey, was he trying? Is it possible that he was playing with you, or is he trying to be mean? And every time she'll say, he was being mean. I said, is it possible that he was trying to play with you? Yes. Okay, then let's see if we can take it that way. And if we just were to look at things in the best possible light, how much better would we be as parents, as a community, as kids ourselves, as teachers, whatever. Just, we need to look at things in the best possible light. We need to get Greg Easterbrook back on to set us straight about how good we are, how good the world actually is, instead of focusing on all the negatives in the world today. So I'm going to mute and let you guys have your final thoughts.
There we go. All right, boys, we are up against the clock. Time is upon us. So, Dr. Jones, you are our impromptu guest for this episode. Welcome. We thank you. So we'll let you go first with final thoughts, and then we'll bid you adieu. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your insight, good brother.
Anytime I try to catch y'all. My final thoughts: own your own, buy DVDs, support local filmmakers, let your children run free as much as you can. Be there for them, right? But don't let them don't pass your fears on to them. We tend to give our children our fears by, no, you can't go over here. No, you can't do this. I got to hold you close because the world's not safe. And yeah, it's true. The world it's not always safe, but you have to know how to deal with that. And so don't cripple your children by coddling them and making them think that things are always going to go their way. I think we need to be better to each other. We need to give each other the benefit of a doubt and have the hard conversations. We need to teach our children how to have the hard conversations and build that resilience in. So even if you're having a bad day, the world still goes on. The sooner we do that, we're going to find ourselves as a whole society in a better position to make the changes that we really want to make, versus, ice skating uphill.
Man,
that's all I got.
Good job, Chappie. You want to go next? You pulling up the rear this time?
Oh, I think I already did my final thoughts. So KG, it's on you. I saw that final thoughts. That counts for my final thoughts.
Oh man,
I'm good.
Right. Hey man, as we go into another holiday season, guys, I just want to say how appreciative I am of you guys, man. We had a very tumultuous year. Let the world tell it. But guess what? We're still here, man. And just like always, we're still talking it out. One step, one breath, one walk at a time, man. So going into the new year is going to be the same exact things. You're not going to always get what you want. But the beauty and the resiliency of our country is, as long as you're willing to put in the work, there'll be people that'll be there to meet you halfway. And as long as we never forget that, we'll be able to survive and we'll be able to thrive. Just stay with it, man. Stay at it. That's all I got, man. Same bad time. Wait, we got one more. Are we doing Christmas lands? Or are we going on break? What's the plan? We'll figure it out.
I'm good with Christmas. I'd like to do one more.
One more then. We'll rock one more. All right.
Sure.
We are out. We are look, and Miss Allie, we are sticking to our 90-minute format like we promised. We are doing our time. We are on time. So same back time, same back channel. Liberty, you are more than welcome to come back on. You got an open invitation anytime. Liberty.
You got to go on camera now, though.
Yeah, you are always on. I will definitely send you an invite, brother. You always on. I want to thank you, Doc, for coming on. Doc Dad for coming on, man. We appreciate you. Chappie, it's always a pleasure, man. For those guys, Salty War Pig, man, appreciate you coming by the show. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed it, man. We hope to see you again. Allie, it's always a pleasure. We love you. Thank you so very much. We'll see you boys next week, man. Let's get after it. All right, let's do it.
Gee, Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world. Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr. Lance O'Neill.
Try to take over the world.